The forest was alive. Birds sang, sunlight dappled the path. The air was crisp, filled with the earthy scent of pine and the distant sound of a babbling brook. It was the perfect day for a hike. The kind of day that made you feel alive and connected to the world around you. 20-year-old Daniel, an avid hiker, felt invigorated. He loved nature's embrace. Every step he took felt like a dance with the wilderness, a rhythm that only he and the forest understood. The trail was familiar, yet every hike brought new discoveries, new moments of awe. This hike was no different. The trees whispered secrets, the leaves rustled in agreement, and Daniel felt at peace. He paused occasionally to take in the beauty around him, snapping photos of wildflowers and listening to the distant call of a hawk. At least, not at first. The day seemed perfect, unmarred by any hint of trouble. The forest was his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the chaos of everyday life. Hours later, a persistent itch started on his ankle. It was a minor annoyance, something he barely noticed at first. He scratched it absent-mindedly, more focused on the path ahead and the beauty surrounding him. A tiny red bump, almost unnoticeable. Daniel shrugged it off. It's probably a mosquito. He had dealt with countless bites before. This one seemed no different. Little did he know, this bite was the beginning of something far more sinister. He continued his trek, unaware of the danger lurking beneath his skin. The forest, once a place of solace, was now a silent accomplice to the unfolding drama. Each step took him deeper into the unknown. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the itch intensified. The once gentle irritation became a constant nagging presence. The forest, now bathed in the golden hues of sunset, seemed to close in around him. The bump grew larger, angrier. It throbbed with a heat that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Daniel's concern grew, but he tried to push it aside, focusing instead on finding his way back to the cabin. This was no ordinary mosquito bite. The realization dawned on him slowly, a creeping sense of dread that settled in his stomach. He had never seen a bite react this way before. Back at his cabin, Daniel examined the bite. Under the dim light, it looked even worse. The skin around it was inflamed, a fiery red circle spreading outward. Worry gnawed at him, but he tried to stay calm. It pulsed with heat, a fiery red circle spreading around it. Worry gnawed at him. He applied some ointment, hoping it would help, but deep down he knew this was beyond a simple remedy. He tried to ignore it, hoping it would disappear by morning. Sleep offered no escape. The pain and itching kept him awake, tossing and turning in his bed. The cabin, once a place of rest, now felt like a prison. The itching became unbearable, turning into a sharp, stabbing pain. Each throb felt like a needle piercing his skin. Daniel knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. Something was very wrong, and he needed help. Morning brought no relief. The bite throbbed relentlessly. Daniel felt a creeping fatigue, his limbs heavy. Dismissing it as exhaustion, he tried to continue his day, but the world spun. His skin felt like it was on fire. The bite, now a grotesque purple welt, oozed pus. Fear gripped him. This was more than a bite. This was an infection. Panic swelled as he realized the gravity of his situation. He was alone, miles from civilization, with a rapidly worsening condition. Fever ravaged his body. Chills racked him one moment, sweat poured the next. Hallucinations danced before his eyes. The line between reality and nightmare blurred. Every inch of his body screamed in agony. The infection, like a venomous serpent, was tightening its grip. Days blurred together. Time lost all meaning. He was vaguely aware of his reflection in the window, a ghost of himself, gaunt and pale. He knew he had to fight. He had to find a way out of this nightmare. Summoning his remaining strength, Daniel stumbled towards his emergency kit. His vision blurred and his legs felt like lead, but he knew he couldn't stop. The forest around him seemed to close in, every shadow a potential threat. He had to keep moving, had to survive. The cabin was his only hope, a sanctuary in the vast unforgiving wilderness. It was a race against time. Every second counted. The ticking clock in his mind was relentless, each tick a reminder of how little time he had left. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic rhythm that matched his desperate pace. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he couldn't afford to panic. Not now. He fumbled for his satellite phone, his fingers clumsy and uncoordinated. The cold had numbed his hands, making even the simplest task a monumental effort. Finally, a connection. The screen lit up, a small beacon of hope in the darkness. He dialed the emergency number, praying for a quick response. The operator's voice, a lifeline in the darkness. "Stay with me," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. Help is on the way. Daniel clung to her words, each one a thread that kept him tethered to reality. He described his location as best as he could, his voice shaking with the effort. Help was on its way, but it felt like an eternity. Daniel clung to consciousness. The minutes dragged on, each one an agonizing weight. He lay on the ground, his body trembling with exhaustion and cold. He looked up at the sky, searching for any sign of rescue. The stars above seemed indifferent to his plight, twinkling serenely in the night. Each breath was a victory. His chest heaved with the effort, every inhale a battle against the encroaching darkness. He could feel his strength waning, his body on the verge of giving up. But he couldn't let go. Not yet. He had to hold on, had to survive. The thought of his family waiting for him gave him the strength to keep fighting. As darkness threatened to engulf him, he heard the distant whirring of a helicopter. The sound grew louder, a promise of salvation cutting through the oppressive silence of the forest. He forced his eyes open, straining to see through the haze of his delirium. There, in the distance, a light. The helicopter was coming for him. Hope, like a beacon, pierced through the fog of his delirium. The searchlight from the helicopter swept across the forest, a bright, unwavering beam that signaled the end of his ordeal. He raised a trembling hand, trying to signal his location. Relief washed over him as the helicopter drew closer, its presence a testament to his will to survive. Daniel knew he was going to make it. Section 5. Unmasking the Enemy. Diagnosis and a Glimmer of Hope. The world rushed back in a flurry of activity. The once quiet night was now filled with the sounds of sirens, hurried footsteps, and urgent voices. The hospital entrance, usually a place of calm, had transformed into a scene of controlled chaos. Paramedics, their faces etched with concern, swarmed around him. They moved with practiced precision, each action deliberate and purposeful. Their training kicked in, and they worked seamlessly as a team, their focus solely on saving a life. An IV drip, a prick of a needle, the comforting hum of medical equipment, these were the first signs that he was in good hands. The paramedic's calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the urgency of the situation, providing a small measure of comfort. He was in the hospital, but the battle was far from over. The journey to recovery had just begun, and the road ahead was uncertain. The hospital, a beacon of hope, was now his battleground. Doctors worked tirelessly, their faces grim. They consulted with each other, sharing knowledge and expertise, determined to find the cause of his ailment. Their dedication was unwavering, and their resolve was clear. Finally, a diagnosis, a severe bacterial infection caused by a tick bite. The revelation was both a relief and a new source of anxiety. At least now they knew what they were fighting, but the battle was far from over. The culprit, a tiny creature carrying a deadly secret. This minuscule invader had wreaked havoc on his body, turning his life upside down. It was hard to believe that something so small could cause so much damage. Relief washed over him, tinged with lingering fear. The diagnosis was a step forward, but the uncertainty of recovery loomed large. He was grateful for the medical team's efforts, but the road to healing was still long and fraught with challenges. He was lucky to be alive. The experience had given him a new perspective on life, a deeper appreciation for the fragility of existence. As he sat on the park bench, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here and the hope that now filled his heart. Section 6. The Long Road to Recovery, a Lesson in Resilience. Days turned into weeks. The hospital room became his world. The constant beep of machines, his only companions. Antibiotics flowed through his veins, battling the infection that had ravaged his body. Slowly, painfully, he began to heal. Scars, both physical and emotional, remained. The ordeal had tested his limits, pushing him to the brink. But it had also revealed his strength, his will to survive. He had stared death in the face and emerged victorious. Section 7. Could this have been avoided? The importance of prevention. As he regained his strength, Daniel couldn't help but wonder, could this have been prevented? The answer, a resounding yes. Simple precautions, often overlooked, could have saved him from this nightmare. Wearing protective clothing, using insect repellent, checking for ticks, these were his new mantras. He vowed to spread awareness, to prevent others from enduring the same ordeal. Section 8. Recognizing the danger signs you shouldn't ignore. Knowledge is power. Recognizing the signs of a tick-borne infection could mean the difference between life and death. A bullseye rash, fever, chills, muscle aches, these were red flags not to be ignored. Early detection and treatment were crucial. Delay could have devastating consequences. He shuddered, remembering his own brush with death. Section 9. Be prepared. Essential tips for prevention and early treatment. Prevention is key. When venturing into nature, be prepared. Wear light-colored clothing to spot ticks easily. Use insect repellent containing DEET. Check yourself, your children, and your pets for ticks after being outdoors. If you find an embedded tick, remove it carefully with tweezers, grasping it close to the skin. Clean the area with antiseptic. Seek medical attention immediately if you experience any unusual symptoms. Don't wait. Time is of the essence.